All right, welcome back, everyone. This is part 3 of our RPG series. So in today's episode, we are going to be animating our player using AnimationPlayer and using AnimationTree. And we are also going to make sure our player is using the right selection that we selected, right? Because we have a player select, so we want to make sure that works too. So in our player, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our animation player. So if I search up animation, we have animation player, and we also add our animation tree. All right, before we get started, keep in mind I've done the research and planning already to this video, and I'm currently implementing everything, but I will do my best to kind of give you food for thought, essentially, and kind of think about these things beforehand. So the first thing we're going to do is, I'll kind of give it away, is we're going to want to create animations for this. So to do that, we go to animate or animation and new. We're going to add different idles. So we're going to have idle down. We're going to do new. Oops. New. Idle up. We're going to have idle right. And we're also going to have idle left. And then we'll also have the walk animation. So we'll make those right now as well. So walk down, walk up, walk left, and walk right. Awesome. So now if we go into here, let's drag this up a little bit. We have all our animations. So for walk idle down, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our idle animation, and we're going to go to transform. And in animation, sorry, there it is. It's already open. So in animation, what we can do is we can just use this little key here, which only pops up if I have the animation tab open. So if I have output, it's gone. If I have animation, there it is again. So I can press the key because this is idle down, go to 0.1, go to frame 1 because it resets, and we're going to key. Now we go to idle left because now it's pointing to the left. We go key, go to 0.1, go up 1 frame again, and key. And then we go to idle up. We're going to just repeat this process for each idle animation. Go to idle right. Now we key that. Go up 1 frame. Oops, sorry. Now we go up 1 frame. Key. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set each animation time to 0.4. We're also going to loop each one. So 0.4, loop it. 0.4, loop it. That one's already looped. 0.4 and loop it. All right, now we're going to hide our idle frame. We're going to go to our walk frame. We're going to animate our walking as well. So walk down, we will have, here it is, perfect, walk frame 0. Create 0.1, frame 1, 2, 3. Again, 0.4 seconds and loop it. Walk left, frame, 0.1, 5, etc. And we're just going to do this for each one. So walk right, nope, not walk right. Walk up, here we go. Walk up, key, go up 1 frame, make the time a little shorter. Walk right, last one, we key it. We're going to go up 1.1. All right, and now we have our animation all set up. Awesome. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a lot of the stuff in our animation tree. So what is an animation tree? It is essentially a tree that allows you to control certain animations depending on what you're doing. So this is the reason I'm using this is because 1, it gives you a good concept of states, and 2, because it actually allows for states. So, which is actually perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to first connect our animation player by going to assign and just connecting animation player. That's pretty simple. Next thing we're going to do is tree root. We're going to create, there's a bunch of little things here, and you might be wondering, what do I use? There's so many different things, and the reason why we're doing state machine is because we're going to, later on especially, we're going to be using states. So just make a state machine, and as you can see on the bottom, it says animation tree is inactive, so we're just going to make it active, and that is it for the settings. Now, in our animation tree here, we're going to go to the plus sign. We're going to add an animation. Nope, sorry, not animation. We're going to add a blend space. We're going to add 2 blend spaces, actually. And as you might guess, this is the idle one, and this is the run. Nope, walk. All right. And so essentially what we want to do, so here's my thought process of research and planning, is in the idle thing here, in our blend space, we're going to play the idle depending on our position. And the same thing, and we're going to do the exact same thing for walk. Okay. So in our walk animation, first thing we can do is, because when we play our game, the first thing our player should be doing is playing the idle thing. So the idle animation. So we can toggle this autoplay here. And now we can go into edit. And now it brings us to this little blend space. So let's worry about the error for now. What this does is essentially, as you can see, this guy right here, it allows us to look at our position depending on the X or Y axis. So this is actually the exact same thing as the input vector. So the input vector will tell us if we're negative or positive or where are we on this X or Y axis, right? So, and then depending on where that is, we're going to play a certain animation. So if we go to this guy, create point, we left click on our tree, we can add an animation, and we'll do idle left on the left, right? Because that's what we're doing. And then idle right on the right side. Now remember, which side, okay, so if I want to put on our top, what do I put? Idle up or idle down? So think about this. Answer it. I'll give you the answer in a second. It's actually idle down. Why? Because remember let me actually double check, because I'm not checking myself out. Let's do it anyways, and then yeah, let's play. So idle up should be on the bottom because Godot is flipped, kind of. The negative is on the top. All right. Now we're going to go to our root. So our blend space is all set up. We can also go to blend and make it discrete. I'll be honest, I don't even know what that one does, but I just know discrete is a bit more smooth. So now we can actually test this. If we take this guy, we can set the blending position, we can move it, and it doesn't work. Actually, we need to code that out, sorry. So let's go to our root, and let's edit our walk animation as well. Let's do the same thing. We're just going to add our animation. So we have walk left, walk right on the right side, then walk down. No, walk up on the bottom, and then walk down on the top. And now we have our little square. And we're gonna set this guy on the bottom. And I wonder. Yeah, okay, here we go. I think it does work. Okay. So if we go to our idle, we can actually test it. Yeah. So we just have to make sure that our idle is showing and not our walk animation or our walk node. So if I'm in idle, I can show up, down, right, left, etc. Right? So now what I'm going to do, last thing, is I'm going to add a transition between the two. So going from idle to walk and walk to idle. All right, now we want to actually code this out. So in our player script, we're going to go into here, and we're going to add a script that allows us to do this. So yeah, let's just add it right away. So the first thing we're going to do is check for input vector and see if it's equal to 0. Vector to 0. Why are we doing this? Well, because if I'm not moving, this essentially, or if my input vector dot x is 0, right? If I haven't touched either of them, it should be 0. And then input y should also be 0. That means my input vector is going to be equal to 0, right? So it's 0. I'm not moving. So what does that mean? I'm idle. It means I'm idle. So what am I going to do? I'm going to get our animation tree by, yeah, well, let's do this. Animation tree dot get parameters slash playback dot travel idle. So what this is doing is simply going into our animation tree. We're going to go into this playback. So edit. We're essentially going into it, editing, and then we're going to travel idle. So we're going to travel depending on where we are, right? All right, so that's if I'm idle. So what about if I'm moving? So else, we can just do else because the only other possibility is if I'm moving, right? There's no other possibility at the moment. So now we can actually just copy paste this to AnimationTree and get walk. However, now, because we're in here, we want to know which direction am I facing? Which way am I moving, right? So what I can do is go here and I'll just copy paste it. We do, instead of get, we're going to set the parameter / playback parameter idle. Sorry, I'm going to do walk for now. Walk / blend position. There we go. And then we're going to delete this because we don't need this. And in our function set, it actually wants two things. It wants, as you can see, it says if 2 free arguments, expected at least 2. And the next one is, because we're setting it, what's the number we're setting it to? Well, we're setting it to the input vector, right? So that's our actual input that we're going into. Now, what we're going to do is we're also going to set the idle animation input vector, right? Because the reason we're doing it in here is because the input vector is equal to 0 here. So we can't put it here. It doesn't make sense. How are we going to set our idle to something when our input vector is 0 anyways, right? So our position is 0, 0. How are we setting our idle animation? It doesn't make sense. So we have to set it in here as we're moving. So I'm actually going to put it right before walk. And then after that, it'll set, because it's set the blend position, it'll save, essentially. It'll save and it'll stay here in our idle animation. All right, and then we're also going to put our move and slide inside of our movement because we're moving here. And yeah, one last thing we're going to do is we're going to actually normalize our input vector. So we're going to get input vector equal to input vector times, is it times? No, dot normalized. There we go. So this is a function that essentially normalizes our input vector. The reason why we're doing this is because before, what was happening with input strength is if I was trying to go to the right and left, so if I was going at an angle, the speed that I'm going at is much faster than right or left. So now we're normalizing it so that our speed is the same all the way around our circle, our imaginary circle. All right, this should be it. So now if I play, I'm going to select, what's going on? Travel in base null. Okay, I might have spelled something wrong. Yeah, I did. Okay, I'm going to copy paste that. And that should still work. Select. Okay, there we go. So now I can move. And because I'm moving, I'm setting the input position. And now every time I stop moving, it's going into the idle animation, essentially, and stopping in the correct direction. Right, so now I can kind of go behind or in front of my sign. It's kind of cool. All right. Next thing we're going to want to do is we want to check which one I'm doing, right? Okay, so here's the planning of our research and planning. So our research is, okay, what do I want to do? My goal, or I guess you can say this is step 4. This is ideate. So here's our goal. We want to show, so if I'm walking, if I'm idle, I want to show this node, this sprite. If I'm walking, I want to hide this sprite and show this sprite. However, I can't do this manually. I can't do this. I'm the coder. I can't be doing this. The code has to do this for me, right? So if I were to play and I actually showed our walk animation is invisible now. So now if I'm walking, it shows, right? It's actually showing that I'm walking. However, when I'm idle, it doesn't show the idle animation because our idle sprite is invisible. So what can we do in our code? Well, ideally, what you would actually do is have all the animations in one sprite, and you wouldn't have to do this, but because the way this animation is set up, we'll do this anyways. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually make a separate function, and this function is going to be called show sprite. Capitalize this sprite, and we're going to pass through sprite name. And in our show sprite function, what we're going to do is just get node idle dot hide, and we're going to do the same thing for our walk. And then what we're going to do is we're going to match the sprite name. And if our sprite name is equal to idle, we're going to take our idle node and we're going to show it. So what we're doing, the reason I'm doing this is the reason I'm hiding them all, and the reason I'm doing this, I'm not putting this inside here or whatever, right? Is because I want to eventually add more nodes or more like animation. So let's say I add our attack animation later on, because that's what we have. We have our sword animation. Yeah, it's a little big, but let's say I have multiple. Maybe I have a roll. Maybe I have multiple animations. I want to hide all of them first and then show the one that I'm playing. So now I can do show hide or show walk, sorry. So now this should work, except I didn't code it in. So now we have to actually call it. So in our idle thing here, we're going to call idle, right? And then in here, put it right there, we're going to call walk. So now it should work. So now I select, I'm idle, and now when I move, it runs. Awesome. Yeah, let's continue on. The video is about 16 minutes. We can keep going. This shouldn't take too long. So now what we want to do, next step. Okay, this is something I want you to think about. So next thing that we want to do, what do you think it is that we should do? Well, because when we play, we have our character select, right? We can select a character and select. However, the character is not right. That's not the character I selected, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our, what do I want? Okay, so that's the ideate. So let's go back here. We ideated. Now I want you to research. I urge you to try to research and plan on your own, and try to think about how we can do this. If you don't know, that's totally okay. You can just keep watching. I'll give you the solution anyways. But I've already researched and planned this, and now I'm going to implement it. So because a lot of this I know just from experience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a node. I'm going to have it built in because it doesn't have to be a normal script. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dictionary of our sprites. So I'm going to do sprites, or I'll do players equals dictionary. And in this dictionary, we'll have 0 equals preload player idle. This one, that's the first one. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill our dictionary with all the players I have loaded, right? So I'm going to do 3, 4, 5, right? And now I can do character 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3. There we go. And obviously I have to add the commas there. There we go. So now we have a dictionary filled with numbers referring to our certain character. So we've preloaded all of them. All right, now what do we want to do? Well, we want to match which one that we're using. So as you might remember, in our game.gd, which is global, we've set our player select, right? So this is pretty easy. What we can do is process function. Okay, so here's something I know from experience. You want to reduce the amount of process functions that you add into the game. So in our player, we only have to set the texture one time, right? Which is on during the ready function. So we can do function ready, match game dot player select. And if our player select is 0, what we'll do is self dot texture. So this is part of the research. Hopefully you've gone through the node of sprite and found out that you can edit the texture. So if you actually hover this, you can see that we can set the texture. So we can set the texture equal to game dot, no, players at 0. And I'm wondering what we can do actually is, I think we can actually just do this. Yeah, okay. Let's take this out. And we're not going to match it. We're just going to do that. So now, whenever I play, let's select like that one. Now in my idle one, it works. However, when I'm moving, it doesn't because I didn't do that yet. So I have to go to my walk. We'll build it in. And I'm just going to copy all this over, go to walk. However, for the sprites, I want to load the walk animation. And so now, as you can see, the path is almost the same. I'm just going to highlight the idle. I'm going to do Control R. Now I can replace all the instances where it says idle with walk. I'm just going to replace all, and now that should work. So now, if I play, I select this guy. Now it selected it. Awesome. In the next video, I think we might implement saving and loading, just so we can actually save the player select, and then we'll also make it so that when I click play, it's going to check if I've already signed up. Essentially, if this is the first time I'm playing, or if it's the second time. So if I've already selected my player, I don't want to select it every time I play the game, right? I want to select it one time, and I'm done. That's it. So I want to select, like, I don't know, this guy, and then play. I want to save all my information and then play again and not have to select it. Okay, so we'll do that next video. And I might do a few other things. But for now, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you understand things a bit more. I'm trying to make my series a bit more unique in the sense of teaching. Yeah, so if you're done, you can click off if you want. But if you want to keep supporting me, you can listen. I don't know. I'm just gonna go on a little rant. I hope this helps, because this isn't something that you just do once in the beginning of the game process. This is something you do every time you're kind of stuck. So even I still do this kind of, in a sense. I will research something, like if there's a node I don't know. So like there's actually a few nodes I don't know. There's one that's not new, but it just got edited a lot, which is navigation. I think this one, or navigation 2D. Like if I don't know it, I'll create it. I'll go into it. I'll kind of look at all the things. I'll research, right? I'll even go into the documentation, and then I'll plan, what do I want to do, and then I'll try to implement it. Then it'll fail, and then I'll think about, okay, like how can I change what I just did, right? Because I shouldn't be doing the same thing twice. And then I'll do this entire process again. So I think that this can help you if you're starting off. If you find that it doesn't help, maybe you can let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think of this series. Hopefully it helps. Hopefully you're learning. If you are, subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. Go watch some other of my videos, and I will see you guys next time.